And here on the main stage, taking the waste out of the waste industry. So I will leave you guys here on the main stage. See you later.
Thanks, Chris. And welcome back, everybody. I'm pleased to introduce a friend, Alistair Lee, and Karen Delaforce from Australia, really demonstrating the global nature here of our event, me on the East Coast here in the US, and these two far away in Australia. Thank you, Alistair and Karen, for joining us. I'll turn it over to Alistair.
Great. Thanks very much, Matt. And in Australia, it's custom to start these sessions by acknowledging our First Nations people. And given we're all joining remotely from around the world, I'd like to extend this acknowledgement to the traditional custodians of the many lands on which we meet today. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present of the Kaurna people, where I'm joining you from. And as someone who loves nature and with a keen interest in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, I think there's a lot we can learn from them about sustainability. After all, they lived sustainably in Australia for over 60,000 years, and colonisation's only occurred in the last 250 years. I was watching a documentary recently and came across an insight that stopped me in my tracks. It was narrated by the famous Aboriginal actor David Gulpilil, and he showed a remote Aboriginal community struggling to deal with garbage or rubbish, as we call it in Australia. He said, "Our two cultures clash with rubbish. We don't see rubbish. Rubbish comes from your culture. We never had rubbish. Everything comes from the bush. Everything goes back to the bush. Now that we live in town and not in the bush, we are choking on rubbish. That means we are choking on your culture." So as you can see from this slide, we produce a lot of rubbish, and 90% of it goes into landfills. Not very good, despite us having systems for collection and recovery. Most Australian households have 3 bins which are collected weekly or fortnightly. One goes to landfill, one is for recycling, that's cans and bottles, cardboard, hard plastics, and one is organics for composting. The recovery rates for aluminium cans is over 70%, but it drops down for cardboard to 60%, glass is 50%, and when we get to plastics, it's only 15%. So a lot of room for improvement. So I'll get you to go to the next slide. Thank you. Cleanaway, we're a major player in the waste industry, but we're at the early stages of our lean journey, and there's plenty of opportunity. My team was established 2 years ago, and we first worked on understanding the current state and designing our implementation. We started with the basics, and the 3 columns that you can see here represent our key work streams. Our purpose is to build capability in our people for improving the way they do the work, so the last column. And we really started with a focus on learn by doing. When designing a lean journey with a challenge of scaling it in a large organization, you need to make choices about the approach. Do you go wide and shallow or deep and narrow? What balance suits your organization and leadership? Well, we've used both. Daily management systems was more wide and shallow, and we went deep with our initial 10 sites that we worked with all different processes. So rubbish collections, transfer stations, landfills, recycling facilities, medical and liquid waste processing. In my experience, process improvement work is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It's not easy for us to change the way we work. We wanted to tell you the story with the many backwards steps in it, as this is often where the learning is. My colleague Karen will speak about the daily management systems, and I'll speak about the process improvement. Over to you, Karen.
Thanks, Alistair. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Our team of 5 continuous improvement specialists work in separate states of Australia, but offer the organisation a team-based approach, but meeting regularly to share and seek feedback from each other on ideas and projects. We hold a daily huddle ourselves to reflect and raise issues, and then we go about our day with the relevant teams that we're working with. As Alistair mentioned, one of our initial focuses was implementing daily management to the organisation. And today we want to share with you how we went about introducing these practices. We are challenged with the wide scale of our organisation. Not only is Cleanaway Australia's largest total waste management, industrial, environmental and health services company, we also, meaning that the majority of our 7,500 employees are on the road in individual mobile offices. It is not only transport that Cleanaway provides, offering services through 13 different operational streams. Each business unit functions with own processes and models, presenting the CI team with various levels of lean methodologies, continuous improvement maturity, and standard work practices. Our threads are spread across Australia. If you're not familiar with the vastness, each from East Coast to the West is a 5-hour flight, which gives us the added logistical challenges of getting to each of our branches and working with our teams face to face. Okay, so how did we do it? We've been on Cleanaway's journey for approximately 2 years. Initially, we started with a SCORA board, safe, compliant, reliable, and optimized assets. And this was introduced to the teams by a targeted approach. Then the VMB that you see on this slide was designed via a check and adjust with the users, our operations teams. One of the changes was that we went back to a simple process with the 3 Rs: review, readiness, and recognition. SCORA was a bit too complicated acronym, and our people often couldn't remember what it stood for or how it worked. On the graph, you see a sudden spike in late 2022. This came about by an exec where she witnessed a huddle using their VMB and requested a rapid rollout across her division. Our team worked quickly with the GMs to determine their priorities. High priority was based on the largest headcount of our branches. Our branches can range from 1 to 2 members in the remote parts of Australia to 100 or more team members in our metro cities. It was determined that branches with more than 5 staff or a supervisor on site would require a physical board and also practice daily huddles, whereas the remaining would be considered a satellite branch, and they would take part via a phone call to their manager. As part of this rollout, a cadence was established where huddles rolled up through the organisation to the executive level. We also then trained our 30 regional managers to assist the coaching and rollout within their branches. Then our work with the frontline teams consisted of meeting each of the teams, introducing basic daily management, then working with them through guidance on designing of visuals. We asked them what do they need to know in order to stay in control, and helped them understand what to measure and how. And then we had to go through returning to the branches for follow-up coaching and to take part in the huddles. Eventually, we'd like our future state to evolve to a hybrid version where some information can be interactive with the physical boards and some information can be pulled up with the use of screens and live data updates. However, at this time, we're keeping it simple whilst teams get used to monitoring and identifying problems to solve. Now, today I had hoped to take you to one of our branches' huddles. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible this year. We have a few video-shy operations members who weren't keen on being in front of a worldwide audience. However, they did oblige with photos and feedback. So we've put together some examples in this video. And most importantly, we wanted to recognize the teams that do all the hard work. In addition to the awesome frontline teams we get to work with, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out for you to keep an eye out for. If you recognize in one of the images Alistair, who spoke earlier, that's an image of our CI team. It's rare we get together, but on this occasion, I managed a sneaky shot of all of my exceptional teammates. At the time, we were working with operational team in New South Wales. We have yet to introduce you to Alex, Golnaz, and Tony, but keep an eye out for them. They join us online today. And it's true what they say, teamwork makes the dream work. Also in these images, we've demonstrated the range of implementation of daily management. In some branches, we started off with a few simple hand-drawn graphs to get the teams into the swing of things. Then we evolved into physical boards and in some instances, digital screens. There is something truly unique about the people of Cleanaway. Wherever I'm working, I'm always blown away by their commitment, passion, and pride for the work they do. We also need to talk about how we're going to sustain it. Sorry about that. So we ran a workshop, and this is one example. So we ran a workshop with one of our regions. We used this daily management wheel from Denise Bennett and asked the operational team what they thought was being done well in their branches. Due to the focus on introducing and practicing daily huddles and visual management, it was no surprise that we saw the top right corner voted on the most. However, discipline for protective time, problem solving, improvement ideas, and standard work are a work in progress for us. Some successes with local buy-in, and we have also recently been requested to help teams problem solve and through workshops and Kaizen events. Alistair's going to take back over and take you through the process improvement work.
Thanks, Karen. Yes, our process improvement example comes from our medical waste business in Sydney. So we collect all types of medical waste, including clinical, anatomical, and pharmaceutical from hospitals and clinics. You can see there on the left a map of some of the hospitals in Sydney spread out. And needless to say that COVID had a major impact on this business, not only with the increase in volumes, but also the impact of the illness on our workforce. The pictures on the right-hand side show our collections and processing. And a key point to note is that we're using returnable containers. I read a scientific article recently from the UK that showed using returnable containers rather than disposable plastic containers resulted in a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 84%. I'm proud that Australia was the first in the world to start with reusable containers over 30 years ago. The processing of the medical waste to reduce its potential harm involves either an autoclave or an incinerator, depending on the type of waste. I'll get you to go to the next slide. So we started with value stream improvement, using a wider team to identify the opportunities. You can see that image on the left. One of these problems identified was that our drivers were spending around 50 minutes of their very valuable time unloading the full bins at our processing facility and then reloading the clean bins for delivery to customers. So we established a cross-functional team of 7 people, which included drivers and also those working on the processing team. And over 2 days, they worked through the quick changeover method to redesign the process. And you can see that image of their future state on the right-hand side. So they identified and tackled many problems: poor flow, the distance the bins were moved, searching for bins, congestion and lack of space, lots of double handling. There was some natural resistance from amongst the group to some of the changes, but the key to overcoming this was the many experiments and trials that the team ran across all shifts, with plenty of check and adjust. So on the next slide, you can see the result. We set them a target of 50%, reducing that lead time, and they actually achieved even better than that at 76%. And the 2 main changes that they made are shown in the photos on the right-hand side. The bottom one, pretty significant, shows pre-staging of the loads, which was a new process. So for that process, when the driver arrives on the dock, the pre-stage operator checks with that driver as to what they need, then pre-stages the load for the next run while the driver is doing that unloading of their truck and their scanning and weighing in the bins. So when they've done that, and the load is generally ready to be loaded on the truck. So we are going to take you to the Gemba for this one, because we have one of our operators who was not so camera shy that was willing to share. The video has a bit of background noise, so we've added subtitles to it.
Hi, Cora.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Welcome to Takeaway Daniels. This is our unloading site. I'm just here to talk about what we've been getting up to over here. So we've had the drivers come onto the dock, and we've had our pre-stagers come over here and giving them a hand, getting their stuff ready for them. And pretty much complement the drivers so we can have a much more better continuous flow. And when it comes to any of the challenges that we've had, it's just mainly been inconsistencies.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So inconsistencies in terms of, like, we've had, for instance, we've had people come to do the job and then something might have happened, so we've had to stop them, and it's been an ongoing process for us. Sometimes we can do the job, sometimes we can't.
Well, did you see a major benefit when someone was dedicated to this role, doing it?
Yeah, I saw a lot of major benefits due to having the bins ready for the drivers, so as soon as they unload, they can load up straight away and go straight to the job.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Coda.
So as Coda said at the end of that video, it's been quite difficult to implement this process. Certainly a story of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It's taken a lot of time and effort, and far longer than I expected. I am by nature an optimistic and persistent person, and a personal reflection for me is that sometimes it doesn't pay to be too persistent. Far better to preserve the relationships so you live to fight another day. So I'm going to hand over back to Karen, who's going to share some of our other reflections.
Whilst ideally it would be great if change and implementation was a linear process, and even better, quick, our journey so far has taught us that much like climbing a mountain, sometimes you have to take 2 step backs to move forward occasionally. Some, but not all, lessons that we've learned, as Alistair mentioned a few before as well. There's some really obvious ones, but they're still absolutely worth mentioning. Alistair has fostered a teamwork environment. Whilst our CI team is small, we have had to work quickly together to scale across the country. This year particularly has taught us that our team working together across the country in one unit has achieved more than we had in the previous years focused on individual work. And by that, I mean our previous approach, whilst we'd come together and seek feedback from each other, while we were working in different regions of the country, we'd often be in different business units or completing work with various levels of maturities. And what multiple ways, this year, as well as the regular work we normally do, we were asked to assist one business unit that had branches in each state. And this gave our team an opportunity to learn, share, and develop best practices across the country. We took improvement ideas and worked on processes together and implemented them in each state. We also practice what we preach, holding huddles daily and regularly checking and adjusting our approach and work. What worked in 2021 may not today. We have learnt from experimentation, whether it is process flow at the front line or in our own strategy and approach to lean. The early stages of lean in the organisation gave us opportunity to develop and grow. Conflicting priorities always will present themselves. We haven't quite cracked the discipline organisation-wide of protective time. And there is a fine balance between top up and bottom down. The buy-in and drive from the executive leaders has been critical to our successes. As you saw earlier via photos and videos, the frontline teams have been fully supportive and welcoming. There may have been some resistance in initial works, but through trialling and experimentation, they have come on board. However, in some instances, getting collaboration with middle management has been a little bit tougher. So Martin Conway, famous for mountaineering and expeditions, said, "Each fresh peak ascended teaches us something new." So to continue to climb this mountain, our persistence and support will be fundamental to the frontline team's adoption of lean methodologies. This brings us to the end of our session. So we will open the floor to questions.
Thanks, Karen. I've clicked in the Q&A and we don't have any questions there yet. I might ask you one, Karen. Recently we ran one of our first Kaizens just this week as a new experiment to run. What was your reflection on that?
My colleague Golnaz was the organizer of the event, so she's put in a lot of effort. I think we all got to benefit though from the aha moments. So we were actually together yesterday with this team and did a little experimentation. There was a few moments that they, massive big smiles on their face, and the realization that we can do less complicated work but achieve more. yeah, and I guess it was those, aha moments that's really rewarding.
Yeah, those are the 2-step forward moments that make it all worthwhile and help you persevere through the 1 step back.
Yeah, it was definitely a great time.
So we might have discovered some more things, some different approaches that we want to use there. And I certainly think the one thing about a Kaizen is compressing that sort of lead time down and getting to experimentation pretty quick. People like that.
Keep it
So
simple.
we've expired our time, I think. So thanks to everyone for listening. And yeah, what a great event. I'm looking forward to listening more and also listening to some of the ones on recording that I've missed. Thanks, everyone.